This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
It's a new year, so you know what that means. That means a new season. It's season 4. Intro a little revamped. Microphone a little revamped. Branding a little revamped. We are now officially the Past BT. So welcome all Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and all podcast platforms. Here you're going to get a flavor of sports, music, tech, video games. Once in a while, we'll get an Ass of the Week and a new part that's going to be coming in. It's not mentioned on the season 3, but we do what's called Pass the Message. So definitely you want to tune in and get some good content on the Pass with your host, BT. What is going on, y'all? What's good? Episode 281 of The Pass is here. I am your host, BT. I was a little delayed, as you can see, by time, but we got to press forward and make things work. I got everything set up, as y'all can see, doing the quarantine kickback podcast, as I like to call it. A lot of information, a lot of things have happened, as I always do, and as I always like to start off. We'll go ahead and hop into our angel number and have a little bit of freestyle with this. If my stuff can be set up like I want, for whatever reason, nothing likes to work out. But as I always do, I like to start off with the angel number, which today, obviously, since this is episode 281, we're going to be talking about the number, or the angel number 281, which symbolizes optimism. It's a symbol of optimism. This is a message from the ministering angels telling you to exercise optimism in your life. The angels understand that that bad luck has been present in your life in the past. Angel number 281 is a sign for you to surround yourself with optimism moving forward. Read books that motivate you, surround yourself with friends who believe in you, and speak to your family more often about your dreams and aspirations. The angel number 281 is sending you a message advising you to be prepared, for the new beginnings will bring joy to you and your family. You may be skeptical because it is not what you're used to. However, angel number 281 assures that with changes coming your way, your life is going to change for the better. New beginnings is a symbol from angel number 281. The angels are sending you a message to begin preparing your heart, soul, and mind for the new beginnings coming your way. This can be a new job, a new promotion, a new car, a new house, or a new family member. Angel number 1 is a sign of initiative. The angels are giving you a message encouraging you to be more involved at home and at work. Yes, ensure that you are responsible for what has been achieved, but go out of your way to do more. The angel number 8 is telling you that doing what is expected from you is not enough. Go above and beyond within your reach to make your family happy, and at work perform above the responsibilities bestowed upon you. 2 didn't make this specific message, but it's okay. Angel number 281 is a sign of motivation. Do not be down and sad because the recent projects you've been working on have not been successful. Angel number 2 is a sign from the angels that if you surround yourself with positivity and participate in activities that will bring you joy, you will be motivated. As well, angel number 281 is a sign that soon your projects will begin to come to life, that everything you have been desiring will fall into place. Do not give up and do not look down on yourself. And that is a hard thing to do at times because we want more, we do more, we strive for more, but more isn't enough because we're fighting ourselves time and time again. And that's something that I'm working on, as people have heard me talk about time and time again. So, as the saying goes, we'll continue to work on and build forward with the information being provided. We have even with, and I'll talk about this before I get into the articles I have, because I know someone brought this to my attention yesterday before recording, or even thinking of doing this show, because I tell people that the podcast is about sports and stuff. The first question that people state is, well, how can you do a podcast about sports with there not being any sports on? It's actually not true, because there are still activities that go on behind the scenes, or incidents that are occurring, or transactions that are occurring related to sports that gives or generates content. For example, and it's not going to be a tab listed for this, but I will talk about it. As many of you may or may not be aware, ESPN prematurely but maturely showed The Last Dance, which, if any of you may or may not have heard of it, it is basically about the Chicago Bulls, their run to championship number 6, and what happened after that championship, let alone leading up to that championship. Because building that team, the first three championships they won were big, don't get me wrong, but the next 3 with the lineup they had was very interesting, because it took a very unique group of players to come together to fulfill that goal, or fulfill that journey. Episodes 1 and 2, you mainly got a good in-depth idea of Michael Jordan outside of basketball. And remember, basketball at that time did not consist of and or include social media. We literally were, if it wasn't on TV, we didn't know about it. So it just kind of was, as stories came forward, that's when we would learn things about the Bulls as a whole. So you get the information about Jordan, which then leads to learning about Scottie Pippen, which I was intrigued because we've been spelling his name wrong all these years. He did confirm that it was supposed to be spelled Scotty instead of Tie. And if you go back and look at episode 2 of that, they do talk about that. He was humble, but he wasn't hungry financially, and that was brought up during the story. Then you get into episode 3, and turnabout's fair play, to say the least, because Dennis Rodman joins the team, and if you do or don't know basketball, Dennis Rodman had previously played for the Detroit Pistons and played for a couple other teams before joining the Bulls. So that was a very ironic connection of getting those two to play together. And that kind of was like an interesting full circle scenario. And I believe in episode 4, they did talk with, you got some info about Tony Kukoc and his backstory. But just overall, I mean, the season and the storyline is pretty good. Like, I catch it how I can, because a lot of times, and I'm being honest, I'm usually watching it and it's kind of almost like it's background noise towards what I'm working on between school as well as goal planning. And you're going to hear a lot about goal planning in some manner or some form during this podcast, and I'll explain as we go along. But, that was the quick hit that I wanted to give on The Last Dance. And before I forget, I also will add this too. If you are a fan of it, I did have my roommate watch it, and I'm telling people to watch it because I like the show. Game of Zones is back. The new season has started. I want to say there are 4 episodes of it that are coming on. Episode 1 was played back last Thursday. Favorite part of it to me was Jason Kidd with the defense reference, which I thought was pretty creative. But that was just one of many things that stood out during that episode. So catch that if you have not done so. Now we'll get into our sports and our stories that I do have. The first story that broke, that literally it hit the news not long after the recording. And a lot of these are going to be post-recording. Like, as soon as I hit stop, stories started to break. And one of them was that Rob Gronkowski is joining the Tampa Bay Buccaneers along with his former teammate, Tom Brady. He did come out of retirement, and he is going to be joining the Buccaneers. It was fulfilled as a trade. Drew Rosenhaus did confirm that information. He is Gronkowski's agent. And if for Drew Rosenhaus did state, he tells me he feels fantastic, that the best he's ever felt. His weight's up to 260. He passed the physical with flying colors. Very excited about playing football again, and being in Florida is exciting. Gronk will be 31, has 1 year and $9 million remaining on his contract. They announced the details of the trade in a news release. Gronk is one of the best tight ends in NFL history and plays the game with the type of passion and desire that sets him apart. This was stated by Bucs GM Jason Licht. So him coming over makes things more interesting because now you're looking at that conference as a whole, or rather that division, and things get kind of funny because here it is now that then drew questions of Jameis Winston, which we'll get into in a moment. Obviously, with the Panthers and their changing of guards made things a little bit more interesting with I believe Bridgewater went to Carolina. So you kind of are looking at things a little different. Obviously, Drew Brees is still in New Orleans. And you still got Matt Ryan in Atlanta. So we'll be looking forward to what comes of this and what transpires over the next couple of days and or weeks. Also, and I'm saying this because it's important to look at, there's not a certainty of what's going to happen with the football season next year. I know a story came up that they may push the season back. We'll have to wait and see, but that is something that is a possibility. And as I mentioned earlier, Jameis Winston is going to be joining the New Orleans Saints on a 1-year deal. The deal is valued at $1.1 million. It does have a base salary of $952,000 and a signing bonus of $148,000. He could possibly earn $3.4 million in incentives. He's hoping to fulfill the role that Teddy Bridgewater had. He was, they go over his information where he was the number 1 draft pick in 2015. Things didn't go well for him. Like, things went okay for him in Tampa Bay, but they didn't go well for him. And that was evident and very clear if you look at how the season played out for him in Tampa Bay. We joked about it in our sports group as him being one of the first players to ever go what was considered 30 for 30, which was 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in one season. And I want to get to this before I forget. It didn't happen last podcast, but I'll talk about it now. I have taken like a Facebook and Twitter sabbatical or hiatus, just however you want to put it. I'm looking to come back soon, but right now I'm just letting that all relax and, push forward with other things. But, continuing with this story, Winston, they're stating, is going to be he's going to split backup duties with Hill, who is the well-known Saints quarterback, who was a passer, runner, and receiver who received a 2-year, $21 million contract on last Sunday as of the writing of this article. Overall, I mean, it gives New Orleans an array of hope, but it also looks at what happens if Brady decides to retire, who the reign is going to go to, things of that sort. So that's kind of the cut and dry version of that story with Jameis Winston. Next story, before I get into it, because I want to make sure I don't leave it on the table just as something to scoff at or just not acknowledge, but the NFL draft did happen. The draft was done virtually, and it was a little different than normal, only because it was a remote-based draft. So the excitement was there, but the intensity wasn't as intense. So it was kind of just, presented as best as possible. You did get the process, so you did go through the stages with Zoom being a big deal. And I say this then, and I'll still say it now. The NFL missed the mark on possibly getting a good sponsorship with Zoom, but you can't win them all. But I think for them, they were more concerned with just getting the players and getting the opportunity of the NFL draft to be presented. The obvious setup was done. Joe Burrow did go number 1 to Cincinnati, which then led to the Bengals deciding to let Andy Dalton go to open up a roster spot for Joe Burrow. And I think they're going to probably make other transactions through the season leading up to training camp and things of that nature. But I know for a fact that them making that decision was clear because it just didn't work out with Dalton. And that was just the bottom line. I mean, if you look at it, Marvin Lewis did what he could with that team. And then you go through the added transition of bringing in, you had Dalton, who was a pretty good quarterback, but winning just didn't come with that. They did also, now because of the story, like I said, everything was done remotely. So you had all of the analysts participating in the event, but they were in their own remote locations. One person we did not see, because anyone who knows, if you ever think of the NFL draft, you always think of Mel Kiper Jr., who is known for the hair, the perfect hair, and breaks down a lot of players who he did that during this draft, which was no exception. And Todd McShay. Todd McShay was unable to attend or participate with the NFL draft due to recovering from the coronavirus. He did give a message saying, "For now, I just want to say I miss you all, my teammates at ESPN who have been incredibly supportive, my friends in the league, and the fans who have made the draft what it is today. I also want to assure you I'll be back thanks to the tireless work of healthcare workers and first responders. You are truly our nation's heroes. In the meantime, I'll be watching, and I hope you will be too. I also hope Trey Ringo and crew will help me out and do their part to keep Mel Kiper in line." McShay has been with ESPN and part of the network coverage on draft day since 2006. McShay was scheduled to be part of the ABC broadcast this year. ESPN's top priority is the health and safety of employees. While Todd won't appear on our NFL draft telecast this weekend, we will be thinking of him throughout the event and doing our very best to keep him proud. And this was a PR message from Seth Markman. That's mainly the main basis of that breakdown. Like I said, the draft was back on Thursday, not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before. And I mean, I looked at a good amount of it. The thing that stood out to me that made me laugh of the draft was just watching them have the teams when they would announce different teams, they would have like a screen behind them. And I'm doing a visual, so those who are listening to the podcast won't see this, but those who are watching it will get it. It's like it was a screen behind the commissioner, Roger Goodell, and it would have fans from a specific team cheering and supporting whoever that team was. The thing that did stick out, or that caught a lot of people's attention for the draft, was, I know for Carolina picked all defensive players, which I think was the first time that's happened ever that I can recall. And I mean, for the most part, it's kind of just clear as to what's what. I have not seen it, and maybe I'm missing it, but there hasn't been anything vocal in what Carolina's doing future-wise other than looking at Bridgewater and making him their guy. But, is that going to be the sure shot, or is it that just we're taking an option and we're going to see what happens and go from there? So I'm keeping an eye on that, but I'm also keeping an eye on different transactions that are going on in football. They did mention there were a couple quarterback controversies to say what I was saying with Jalen Hurts being picked up by Philadelphia from out of Oklahoma University. I can't remember the other team. Give me a sec. It was another team who picked. Green Bay picked the quarterback, which then caused the big stir of what is Green Bay going to do with Aaron Rodgers, when it's like, it's Aaron Rodgers now. If they're looking to do something and not tell him, then it's going to look really weird in the long haul. But we got to, as with anything, we got to wait it out and see how it all happens. Going into NBA a little bit, before I get into the articles I do have, I want to share that they are stating that the team, they'll be postponing the NBA draft lottery, which then will lead to postponing the actual NBA combine event. And I saw that coming. So it's going to kind of be scouts and teams going off of raw footage from what they see when kids were playing in college or overseas to factor in when or at what point these players will be picked up. As of right now, me taking a blind stab, the number one pick that they're looking at right now is LaMelo Ball. What he can bring to a team, it depends on the team. Like, I know before the season started, or before all of this happened, everyone was on the kid from Georgia, because he's been balling. I know they said Cole Anthony is pretty cold. Like he's going to be interesting to watch when he gets, picked. Height is my challenge with him, but he can shoot. He's a pretty good defender. I know James Wiseman from Memphis. I would not be surprised if he gets picked top 5. I will forewarn people and tell everyone now, and this is on May the 2nd, this is not going to be your average draft. And when I say not your average draft, it's going to, it'll be like most drafts, but it's going to be in the sense of players will be chosen, but there won't be any high. Don't look for high reward from players being selected. That's the nicest way I can put it. And I'm wanting to give benefit of the doubt to the teams that are drafting, but it's way too early, and it's way too blind to really look at what we're going to look forward to, because we also don't know who's going to be where once all of this ends. So those are things to look at for the draft. Going into the NBA, just briefly or transparently, the NBA is trying to find a way to get the players to keep active. And what they're doing is they're going to be allowing team facilities, practice facilities to open up on, this was last week. So this is at, like I said, the podcast is being done today on May 2nd. This article was done on April 25th. And they're mainly allowing players in states and municipalities that are loosening stay-at-home restrictions amid the coronavirus to allow them to come out and, get their ball in. What's going on, Hector? Welcome to the show. What's good, man? Players can return to team facilities in states such as Georgia for voluntary individual workouts as soon as next week, which allows for NBA organizations to start allowing players to return to training at in a professional, safe environment. The challenge behind this right now is all teams aren't allowing, all cities or states don't have players where they're allowed to come out and play. So that then generates another question of, well, are players going to travel to other states where they can play? Like, how's that all going to work? We'll see how that all plays out. I know Miami, they are mentioning that they may open the Walt Disney facility. And if it's the facility, I think it is. It's the venue they normally use when kids are looking at possibly, what's going on, man? When they're looking at when it's high school prospects, they usually play at this venue for different basketball tournaments. So if they're using that venue and they're going to turn that into like a NBA based area, I'm going to be intrigued to see how that works, and also wonder how the limitations are going to work, because they haven't really given full information, since we're supposed to be still social distancing as well as being under 10 people when it's already going to be 10 people on the court. Just keep that in mind. Teams will remain prohibited from holding group workouts or organized team activities. In markets in which more restrictive games of stay-at-home orders remain in place, the NBA is telling the teams the league will work with franchises to help find alternative arrangements for their players. This is being done based on loosening of local government policies. It's not a reflection of the new timetable for a resumption of play this season. I'm sticking to it now. I've said it a couple times on the show. I don't see them finishing this season. This season is not going to be a season. Someone brought up an interesting question to get away from basketball a little bit, but to kind of put it in perspective. Like hockey, or even with any sport, like season cutoff, stop, done. What's going to happen after that point? Like, who do you crown as a winner? How do you place it? Like, if we were to, if things are starting back up, do you start from where you left off last season, or do you just not do anything? How does that come to fruition? And I'm gonna be honest, like they can just kind of process it and saying, hey, there was no season. Like, you can't put an asterisk beside it and say, hey, this team won. Like, it's almost as though, and I don't mean to rush through that very quickly, but I'll give an excellent example. Let's see, in the NCAA tournament, right? Florida State was considered as the ACC champions in basketball. They didn't play anybody, but they were given a championship, and it felt weird. It still feels weird, but you just got to do it. It's just what it is. So with all that being the case, it's not a observation of a team or a player a team genuinely winning that title. Like no one, like they're not going to simulate and factor in, okay, we're going to take so many teams and say, hey, this is the tournament and we're going to make March Madness. There was no March Madness. And the same would probably happen with the NBA. The only factor, the only concern behind it is the money part. But, that's all another or separate part of the equation that's not looked at or thought of. Sticking with basketball, and that's mainly it for the player facilities. Like I said, when or how soon that's going to happen as far as seeing places open up, you got to give it time. And it's also going to be where they're going to do this, how it's all going to get done. Like all of that has to be put into effect with this occurring. Fox News, this story is on other outlets, but per the New York Post, it was confirmed Sebastian Telfair, who, if any of you may or may not be aware, he was a former NBA player. He played in the NBA. He played a little bit overseas. He's more so known as Stephon Marbury's cousin. They confirmed that his mother, as well as his brother, both had died due to contracting the coronavirus. His mother's name, Erica Telfair, and brother, both Dan Turner. Eric Telfair passed back on early Monday. Dan Turner died from the virus back on March 28th. And this information was provided thanks to Dwayne Morton. According to the New York Post, Sebastian Telfair's younger brother, Ethan, posted about his relatives' deaths on social media. Let me see them x-rays. I ain't no expert. We just hurt. And this is what Ethan Telfair reportedly wrote on an Instagram story. And they give a little bit of information about that occurring. They kind of talk about Telfair's history with, getting into the NBA, things of that sort. So prayers and condolences to him and his family on losing a loved one, because that is definitely not an experience that anyone wants to embark upon, let alone embarking upon it because of this. And that's the cleanest and calmest way I can talk about that. We'll now get into stuff, and there is definitely a lot of stuff to get into. I want to make sure I don't leave anything off the table, so I'm looking at my show notes as we go along. Our first story, and this is kind of going to be a one in the same kind of story, but we're going to get into both of them to present it for what it is. And one of my friends just commented in Instagram, so I'll share this with those who are listening to the audio podcast. Sports have truly taken a big hit with this pandemic, and not in a good way. Some sports, such as NASCAR racing, are considering virtual tours, but it just isn't the same. And that's 100% valid. Doing or mimicking an event to make it simulated or trying to virtualize it isn't the same as physically attending an event. And that's, we witnessed it firsthand. Like, for fans to at least know some form of the NFL draft was on TV made them feel like there was some form of hope with sports. And yes, like, as I mentioned, revenues are definitely taking a hit, because it's not just, it's not just about fans attending events and, people buying things. It's also people who are working at these events who rely on attending or participating in those different events. So all of that got impacted in more ways than a few because of this. So that's something we definitely have to take, into consideration with all that's going on. So, like I said, the first story we have about stuff relates to T-Mobile and Sprint. If you have or have not heard, the merge is just about in the works, if not occurred. T-Mobile, the merger with T-Mobile and Sprint has completed. T-Mobile is going to be making network changes by expanding to 5G frequencies, and will allow Sprint customers to use T-Mobile's 5G if they have a Galaxy S20. Now, this comes with stipulations, as this article will likely get into, about even with the 5G network coming to fruition, it doesn't mean that everyone's phone is going to automatically hit 5G. I know it's going to be a slow process with 5G. I've come to be real in saying I don't even think 5G has anything to do with, because I know there was a conspiracy that went around, and I am not because of doing podcasting, conspiracies annoy me because you don't want to go by hearsay. You have to kind of go by what is said to be facts, which is we just know that this pandemic is really taking a heavy toll. And this article isn't talking about that, but I know at one time it was like, oh, well, it's related. Like people could be having this happen because of 5G and heightened internet frequencies, signals, and things of that sort. But that's pure BS if anyone really thinks that. T-Mobile's using the 2.5 gigahertz spectrum it acquired through the Sprint merger to bring 2.5 gigahertz 5G to customers in Philadelphia. It's already seeing speeds of 600 megabits per second in the city, and it says customers in New York City can expect the same 5G service next. According to the company, in the next few years, the mid-band spectrum will provide 5G that's up to 8 times faster than current LTE. T-Mobile is also expanding its 5G network to Detroit, St. Louis, and Columbus, Ohio. It will continue to use its low band 600 megahertz spectrum as the foundation of its 5G network in these cities. There are a few perks for Sprint customers too. They can now roam on T-Mobile's LTE network as long as they have compatible devices in areas not covered by Sprint. And if they have a Samsung Galaxy S20 5G, they'll have access to T-Mobile's nationwide 5G beginning later this month. According to T-Mobile, that covers more than 5,000 cities and towns or more than 1 million square miles across the country. So still got to give 5G time. We're not going to see 5G come into full circle anytime soon, only because it's still relatively new in the phone scene. If you go back and like a lot of people may not realize that they lived through it. We lived through 3G. We practically saw 3G jump into 4G, and now we're not far away. I'd say by the end of this year, we'll see 5G come like full circle for most carriers. Don't be surprised. I mean, I know most Verizon users have it or are going to have it, but it's a matter of it being properly available to all phones, carrier services, et cetera, et cetera. John Legere. So if any of you may or may not know, he has been part of the board of directors with T-Mobile. Anytime you think of T-Mobile, you see John Legere's face. You see a lot of tweets. You see a lot of Facebook posts from him or someone representing as him. He has resigned to pursue other options. We knew this was coming. It was just a matter of if or when, and just waiting it out to see it actually happen. He formally and properly cut ties with T-Mobile. He led as CEO for over 7 years. He saw T-Mobile go through a dramatic turnaround that culminated in its successful merger with former rival Sprint. He stepped down, and Mike Sievert was appointed T-Mobile's new chief executive earlier this month. This was early this month, is in April. At that time, Legere said he would remain on T-Mobile's board of directors until June 4th, but that's not the case anymore. T-Mobile revealed that Legere is leaving the board effective immediately to pursue other options. He already had a plan in place. He noted he was not resigning because of any disagreement with management or the board on any matter. T-Mobile said in its note, which also contained a quote from Legere addressed to the community and its employees. In this notice to the company, Mr. Legere stated, "It has been a privilege and honor to have led T-Mobile as CEO for the past 7.5 years and served on the board of directors. And although I will be leaving the board just a few weeks earlier than planned, be assured that I remain T-Mobile's #1 fan. Whatever Legere has planned next couldn't wait another month and change. During his time as T-Mobile CEO, he stood out from other executives for his outspoken personality and brazen, often vulgar trash talk directed at competitors like Verizon and AT&T. He branded T-Mobile as the uncarrier and led the company through a transformation that involved moving away from 2-year contracts, subsidized phone pricing, and other business practices that had become status quo for the mobile industry. Many of those changes were later adopted by T-Mobile's rivals. Legere has offered a few clues about where he's headed, though he did refute reports in November that he'd been chosen to join WeWork. Since stepping down as T-Mobile CEO, Legere has continued engaging with his large social media following. He's got over 6.5 million Twitter followers via Periscope and other platforms. He did mention that give his sentiments to outgoing AT&T CEO Randall Stevenson after the company announced that he'll be succeeded by John Stankey in July. And that's kind of where we are. So him leaving is big, but it's not big, even though it's a huge deal solely for the fact that when you think of T-Mobile, you think of John Legere. So best of luck to his future. I still think the WeWork or the company that he's going to, it's just a matter. That was just kind of like him officially moving that direction. Facebook has an answer to Zoom and House Party. Any of you who have been doing different video chats, virtual happy hours, various events, the go-to has been Zoom. At one point, it used to be Skype, but I think a lot of people have gone away from Skype for various reasons. And I think I was part of one that was called 8x8, but I mean, whatever you can find, as long as it's getting a group of people together to talk and have fun and kill time, that's what it's all about. Facebook has come in with a program called Messenger Rooms. It is rolling out a suite of new products to expand its capability in video chat. The company today announced Messenger Rooms, a tool for starting virtual hangouts with up to 50 people and allowing friends to drop in on you whenever they like. It's also doubling the capacity of video calls on WhatsApp from 4 people to 8. Adding video calls to Facebook dating and adding new live streaming features to both Facebook and Instagram. I'm not gonna really read all this because it kind of self-explains what it's all going to do. It's like I said, it's just another competitor coming into the streaming world that we're in and trying to help people communicate with each other and, in my personal opinion, cope through dealing with this pandemic. And before I continue with any other stories, I do want to make people aware that if you need outlets or you need to go back to remembering how to talk to people, this device that you're watching this video on or listening to this podcast on, pause the podcast or stop and take a moment and reach out to someone. Don't reach out to them as a text, because in the 90s, we did not text. We actually called people and checked on them. A lot of people's well-being have not been the greatest, and I don't want to rush too far ahead of the podcast with doing a pass the message now, but this will be a gem to share with everyone in reminding them that it's not a bad idea if you pick up a phone and call someone just to say hello. Don't have to make it into a long-winded conversation. A hello can go a long way. And that's all I'm going to leave you with on that part. Continuing to our next story. This is a random story that I found. Hey, Mai, what's going on? Welcome. My respectful, I guess I can call you I'm the producer of your show. Let's Talk About It, which I'll be working with tomorrow. She just uploaded her new show, so go check that out if you've not done so. I'll remember to leave it as a show note in my podcast, maybe. Yeah, I got a mark for it. I'm just joking. But continuing with stories on my show, Microsoft Word is now flagging the double spaces as errors, ending the infamous great space debate. Anyone who knows or remembers the podcast, not the podcast, but the Microsoft Word flow will tell you when you would type and anything in Microsoft Word, your natural instinct was to hit a period and press the space bar twice. For a couple of years, I was beginning to realize you didn't need to do 2 spaces. You only had to do 1. And now Microsoft is kind of stapling that concept by making others aware, 1 space and you're good. they've settled the great space debate. And before I go further with this, I like this story a little bit more than the infamous GIF versus GIF debate. And I'm going to explain why. GIF and GIF was kind of obvious. It's a GIF, period. If anyone wants to call it a GIF, you're welcome to do so. I won't disagree with you, but I'm not calling it a GIF. Just not my thing. That being said, with the spaces, I can see where people look at two as giving that space between a new sentence. One is kind of like when you're writing, and I get it, writing on paper is a little different, but any form of writing, one space has you covered for starting a new sentence. It's not a good or bad thing if you still are doing two spaces, but Microsoft is being a little bit more transparent with it now. They did settle the score on the great debate and sided with everyone who believed that one space after a period is correct, not two. The software giant has started to update Microsoft Word to highlight two spaces after a period. A full stop for you Brits as an error, and to offer a correction to one space. Microsoft recently started testing this change with the desktop version of Word, offering suggestions through the editor capabilities of the app. If you're still strangely on the two-spacer side, you will be able to ignore the suggestion. The editor feature in Word allows users to ignore the suggestion once, make the change to one space, or turn off the writing style suggestion. We understand Microsoft has been testing the feature change recently, and it will roll out to everyone using the desktop version of Word soon. Feedback to the change has been overwhelmingly positive. As the crew of the great spacing debate, I'm probably pronouncing these, finding words that I'm not used to. Crew. I think it's crew. X silent. We know this is a stylistic choice that may not be the preference of all writers, which is why we continue to test with users and enable these suggestions to be easily accepted, ignored, or flat out dismissed in editor. Much of the debate around one space or two space has been fueled by the halcyon days of the typewriter. Typewriters use monospaced fonts to allocate the same amount of horizontal spacing to every character. Narrow characters like I got the same amount of space as M, so the extra space after the period was needed to make it more apparent that sentences had ended. Word and many other similar apps make fonts proportional, so two spaces is no longer necessary. That hasn't stopped the battle over one space or two from raging on for decades. However, a study on the hotly contested issue supposedly handed the victory to the two spacers back in 2018, but many questioned the research and it clearly wasn't enough to convince Microsoft. Expect to see the new changes in Word roll out to everyone in the coming months. Congratulations, fellow one spacers. Judge all you want, I'm team one space, and I'll give one piece of info to tie to this and it will kind of put it in perspective. On most, I would say with iPhone and Android, I know with iPhone for Gboard, the default keyboard, and I will throw in, SwiftKey. Because those are the three keyboards that have been my go-tos. When you press the spacebar twice, it automatically places a period and it places a space to start a new sentence. It's not two spaces. End of discussion. And I know that's in tech, and I know that's in mobile form, but even in actual typing form, it looks a lot cleaner when you type and paste one space. I may go to one of my editors who does editing and get his opinion on that. Well, that's something I might consider. Our final stuff before we get into music and ads of the week and an unfortunate pass of the week. Apple is working on a beta. that could be coming soon that's going to factor in from everyone who has been wearing masks trying to open their phone. Now, I'm going to read this article, but I'm going to give a little bit of insight regarding this once the article comes back, because it looked like it disappeared. Being able to unlock your phone with Face ID is great until you're wearing a mask. Hey, Andrew, what's going on? Until you're wearing a mask. Apple recognizes this, and in beta software released today, it makes it a little easier to skip the Face ID display and enter your passcode. This also kind of triggers or brings up something that a lot of people didn't think of. When iPhone went away from the thumb option or your finger, your Touch ID, and went to full facial scans, we didn't expect a pandemic or people to wear masks and then affect how you would be handling this. And it also affects those, and it was a video that I watched that explained this too. It also affects anyone who wears sunglasses, because you're technically not seeing your actual face or your eyes, because that's what it's mainly looking for, is the eyes and the face to match. At the moment, there's a slight delay between your phone realizing that it can't see your face and offering the screen to enter a passcode. To avoid that, you either have to remove your mask or turn off Face ID. But in the most recent iOS 13.5 beta, Apple lets users swipe up to enter a passcode and skip the delay. Some Twitter users report that if your phone detects you're wearing a mask, it will automatically jump to the passcode screen. And they kind of give an example of the Twitter person who shared that they have an example of them using it. Since it's still in beta, it may be a few weeks before the feature is made widely available. When it arrives, it should make accessing your phone while you're wearing a mask a little easier and quicker, which at the end of the day, that's all we want is convenience. Though what we really would have liked is new technology that helps your phone recognize you even with a mask on without reducing security. Don't see it happening. This is an honest techie, and as a transparent user of technology, that just doesn't, that wouldn't fly. But that's how I'm thinking. I don't expect everybody else to think the same. So that's just my personal views on that. Before we get into, like I said, we'll do Ass of the Week, Pass of the Week, things of that sort. I'm going to do a music sesh. I have an article. I'm going to talk about the article a little bit, but I'm going to give some thoughts, and then we'll just brisk on through the rest of this. So music sesh, Drake brought out a new album. I don't consider it as an album, but it's a new album that has a couple songs. It has the Tootsie Slide, which everyone remembers. It was a song that he did with Future that was released. The other song that him and Future did isn't on this album, which tells me everything I need to know, because that likely means it's not his song. That means we'll expect it on Future's album whenever that drops. That then goes into Meg Thee Stallion and Beyonce doing the remix of the song Savage. And I'm going to get this on the table now and get it out of the way. The Savage remix is not the same as the Savage original. Meg has more lyrics. Her verse has changed a little, which is fine. You're going to see a lot of people doing the new dance. And if you don't know the dance that I'm referring to, you'll want to listen to the song. And it's a verse that Beyonce gives, especially of women having to jump into jeans or not understanding the struggle of wearing jeans and trying to jump to put them on. Guys, we won't relate too much because half the time we always wear stuff baggy as it is. If you are wearing it baggy though, at least wear a belt. Just my opinion. Random statement. Doja Cat and Nicki Minaj brought out their collab called Say So Remix. Lil Baby brought out the deluxe version of his album. I might have promoted her playlist before, but I'm going to promote them again. A friend of mine named Nix, I call her Nikki, but she's practically like friend of the family, friend of the pod. I support her show. That's So Creed, and I probably missed the Garden of Creed, and I'm mixing and paraphrasing, but she has a page based on 11th hour management, and she does playlists every Sunday. And I might have mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it again. Listen to these playlists in order. You'll be very grateful for the process of creating the playlist. I found a lot of good gems from listening to her playlist, and that's the best thing I can tell you on that part. I didn't listen to all of this yet, but I have been hearing a couple snippets from the Insecure soundtrack. Never watched the show Insecure on HBO, but I do know of the show. And there was a song on there with Jadena. That's all I'm going to say. It's a good song, like any other, a lot of the newer Jadena tracks that I've been listening to. I put all that information out there to lead to the Instagram battle that happened after I recorded Saturday, and I had to live with it. And that was Teddy Riley and Babyface. Two forms of energy that show you a very simple concept in life. Less is more. And when I say that respectfully, and I say that with open arms and open mind. Hey, Brandy, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Glad you could stop in. You're coming in at a good point too, actually. Teddy Riley had everybody and then some under the sun participating in his live set. Babyface was literally sitting at his camera, probably had it on a tripod, and simply just was ready to give off song after song of the songs that he worked on or has performed or that he performed with, based on collaborations. My friend Brandy just commented and said that was a shit show. That's an understatement, but I'm gonna go with it. It was definitely the epitome of trash, like pure, as my roommate and I call it, Holtz garbage. Like the struggle or El Struggle was real. It should not have been presented as heavy as it was, but Teddy is known for doing a lot. Teddy has the equipment. Teddy wanted to show off. I think different technologies bombarded other technologies, and it caused for the results that we got. It would be equivalent to me doing this Insta Live with this camera facing me, another camera facing me here, another camera over here, and I'm trying to get different angles, and or having someone else be recorded during doing these lives, and the audio just comes in bad for all of them. And it would not be good content for the listener or for the viewer. This did have potential to be ass of the week. I'm not gonna lie, but we did get another ass of the week, and I'm gonna get to him in a moment. And to add to that point, Brandy said, and Babyface was shading him so smoothly. But that's Babyface. If you know music, you know Babyface. Like these, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, these are the uncles of music now. Like we look at them as the legit OGs in the musical community. So the CNN Entertainment article states that the highly anticipated Instagram live battle between Kenny Babyface Edmonds and Teddy Riley didn't turn out as expected. Issues with audio, specifically on Riley's end, halted the face-off between the two producers that drew more than 400,000 viewers. It looked as though Riley was prepared for a concert, unlike Babyface, who was sitting in the studio. There it is. That may have been Riley's downfall, because all viewers heard was playback and echoes whenever it was his turn to play a song. The comments were riddled with jokes about the two producers' age, which I am really going to be blown. I didn't even realize it. Babyface being 62 and Riley being 53, and them not being able to use Instagram. Comedian Lil Duval posted on his Instagram saying Riley should just use his iPhone to record rather than trying to set up a concert. Radio host Charlamagne the God fired off some jokes, posting a meme of two old men at a computer saying it was Riley and his team in the studio. Singer Tony Braxton was live tweeting during the whole debacle, at one point saying that watching the live feed was like watching old folks use jitterbug phones. But it's so true, though. Now that I go back and look at it, and they give other references of things that other celebs stated. Less is more. That's really all I got. I'm not gonna long wind it. I'm not gonna make it anything over the top. Less is more. Like, even with what I'm doing, a microphone, this camera, my equipment set up, and a tablet, I am not about to sit here and have like a whole, for me recording, I don't need a bunch of equipment to go over the top. Yes, I've used like a regular tripod at times, but it's not something required. It's an option, or it's an opportunity. Going into, before I do Ass of the Week, I want to send prayers and condolences to the family members of rapper Fred the Godson. Make sure to see if they have his real name here. They probably don't. Okay. Frederick Thomas. He was born February 22nd, 1979. He grew up where hip hop began, in the Bronx. They go, talk about his career. But he had passed away due to the coronavirus. His death at Montefiore Medical Center, where he'd been hospitalized since early April, was confirmed by his publicist Matthew Conaway, who said the cause was complications of the coronavirus. Back when mixtapes were still the coin of the realm in New York rap circles, Fred the Godson was a reliable, forceful presence. He had a husky voice, but it was nimble too. All the better for the kind of wordplay, heavy punchline-filled bars that thrived in those settings. Double entendres, homophones, homonyms, assonance. He always found a way to bend a rhyme. They go over some more information about him, and it's unreal, because this story hit me heavy because I was listening, I'm listening to Joe Budden's podcast, and he brought this up, and it was like, once things get closer, even if it's not you directly feeling it, when someone you are close and feeling, understanding their show or routine, you get these type of stories, and it's kind of like, wow, I need to really, think this out and not take it as lightly, because a lot of people are taking it lightly. And I'm gonna say this before I get to Ass of the Week, because Ass of the Week is gonna sum it up even better. If you can help it, please try to not wear gloves everywhere. Cross-contamination is not a good look, as well as the fact that it's not benefiting you if you're not keeping your hands to yourself. And as an added bonus, and I probably have said this on the show before, if you are in the car by yourself going somewhere, you do not need to wear a mask. What are you trying to not? You're trying to cover yourself from yourself. Just help me. Help you to help me so I can understand. For our Ass of the Week, I have gone to a notable yet nostalgic character known as, let me make sure I pronounce it right, Mr. Yuck. Those of you who probably have no idea who this is, Mr. Yuck was these stickers they gave to kids. A parent, parents would get them, or you as a child, you would have them. It would be like 10 or 20 stickers. They would be on a package. No, they would be like, you would have them, and they would go on anything that was under your sink or in arm's reach as a child, because it wanted to be made clear not to drink this product, not to consume this product. This product is to be used for cleaning and maintenance in the house. I bring that up because Lysol wants to make everyone aware, along with the health and safety experts, that Lysol is indeed a poison. What makes this bad is, and I'm gonna continue recording the audio, so I'm gonna briefly step off and then I'm gonna come back, but for Instagram. But I am going to share this in making it clear. This is not to be taken lightly as people are taking it. You cannot drink You should not do any type of consumption of Lysol. Lysol has poison in it. I'm coming back to the Instagram live, y'all. And I'm not laughing about this in the sense because the part under it is where I was concerned and it happened. People have died after following Trump's medical advice. The makers of Lysol, the Washington State Emergency Management Division, and the Environmental Protection Agency all scrambled to do damage control after President Trump appeared to suggest injecting people with disinfectants could be a possible cure for COVID-19. How? That's all I'm going to say. How? During last night's White House press briefing, and this was done on April the 24th, an official from the Department of Homeland Security said that they're studying whether household cleaners like bleach and rubbing alcohol can kill the coronavirus on inanimate, non-living surfaces. Trump jumping in took it a step too far. And I've been doing pretty good before I go further. I've done pretty good not having Trump be an ass of the week, but with this going on, he could be a shoo-in, and that's another story. Trump's statement says, and then I see disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets in the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that so that you're going to have to use medical doctors with, but it sounds interesting to me. Disinfectants are very good at killing microbes on surfaces outside of the body. But to be clear, they're harsh chemicals. If you inject or ingest them, they're far more likely to poison or kill you than they are to poison or kill the virus. Calls to poison hotlines around cleaners and disinfectants are already much higher than normal, which the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says appears to be related to coronavirus-related cleaning efforts. The manufacturer of Lysol put out a statement this morning stating that their products should not be used inside the human body. We must be clear, under no circumstance should our disinfectant products be administered into the human body through injection, ingestion, or any other route. The Environmental Protection Agency said last night that disinfectant shouldn't be ingested, though they didn't indicate what prompted the warning, and the Washington State Emergency Management Division tweeted that people should not inject them, and they have their tweet. The New York State Department of Health also put out a warning about cleaning products on Twitter, as did the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. I'm not reading the rest of this article. Y'all should know better than to realize injecting, ingesting, or consuming a poisonous product is not going to kill a coronavirus. It could kill you. It can harm you. We cannot be this stupid, but obviously we are if it resorts to these type of articles or these type of press releases having to be presented. I'm not going to go any further than that. You do with those thoughts as you will, and I'm just here to share gems only as I know how. Speaking of gems, I have a message to pass along to everyone. Today is May 2nd. This podcast might go up on May 3rd because I have some assignments and tasks that I need to do. But I want to share with everyone, if April was not your best month, don't harp on April being rough. April was rough for a lot of reasons. The COVID-19 pandemic increased a lot more. I think a lot of people's cabin fever picked up a little bit. Anxiety was a lot higher. Everyone didn't do well with being alone, placing the alone and lonely wording into the same category or making them synonymous when they're not. it caused a real huge impact on a lot of people's mental well-being. Where it really hit home is anyone who is currently in the healthcare field and realizing that the point when you really think people had your back business-wise, they didn't have your back. And I'm not, before I say anything crazy, I'm not throwing any shots or any shade. It is more so the option and reality of realizing that you have to value who you are more than anyone else. I say all of that to say, don't let April jeopardize or be the staple of where you are and in May. Just let that be what you learned from, what you built upon, what you dwelled upon, what occurred, and press forward. I had a rough April, to say the least. Things, news came in and I wasn't prepared for, but I had to be prepared, along with the fact that I was beginning to see more assessments of myself than I had ever seen in a while. And it made me really look at what's next and what am I going to be doing. And I'm still trying to figure those things out as I'm recording this podcast right now. So I share those things, I share everything, and I'm talking about all of this because I don't want anyone to be overly hard on themselves if everything doesn't go the way they thought it should go or aren't pleased with the way things may or may not be turning out for them. A friend of mine shared this with me, and I'm going to show this on stream. Hopefully, if my camera plays nice. Okay, cool. It showed it. It's a message that's on my weekly goals. And I know you all aren't going to see it and who are listening to the podcast in audio form. But one of my weekly goals is to not overwhelm myself. And that's what I'm going to tell everyone who's listening to this show. If you made it to this hour and 6-minute point, all of the other information is fine. You do with it as you will. But by all means, try your hardest not to overwhelm yourself. And you're going to have points where you are going to feel overwhelmed. Or you're going to feel underwhelmed because you're doing a lot and you still don't feel like you're doing enough. When in reality, you're doing way more than most people would even attempt to do. And that's going to be different for you. It's going to be different for others. And it's going to be different throughout the process of living. So the gem or the message that I want to pass along is take April, put a mark through it, assess from it what you need, and move forward. That's the only thing that I can tell you. And I hope everyone enjoys this week. This this last day of Saturday, what's upcoming next week. If things possibly go according to plan, we might be back doing every week. I don't know yet. I'm negotiating on it. But I would like to get the content back rolling again. And I had to kind of stop it for educational and personal purposes. And that's just life. So I just want to share all of that. And I hope everyone does well, does what they need to do, and gets over whatever humps are in their way or whatever weapons have been building or have been built without you realizing. Until next time, this is The Past signing out. As your host, BT. Y'all have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next show. Really appreciate all the support, all the listens, all the likes, all the effort that goes into anyone who has provided any form of content for The Past. We're signing out now, but you definitely don't want to miss what's in store for the upcoming episode. If you are interested in getting more information or becoming a podcaster, you can check out buzzsprout.com. And the microphone that you are hearing me use is the Blue Yeti X. I had been using a Yeti for a while. I went back to the Samson Meteor, but now I'm using the Blue Yeti X, which is everything. Trust me. All social medias, The Past BT. That's THE, pass, as in pass the ball. BT is my initials. And finally, if you are a creator and you want to support a fellow creator, subscribe, like, and comment on the past. Until next time, this is your host, BT, signing out.